She was the kind of person people often looked past. Not because she did anything wrong. Not because she was rude or careless, but because she never tried to pull attention toward herself. She did not speak unless she had something important to say. She did not laugh loudly or raise her hand first. When she entered a room, she walked softly, almost like she hoped the floor would not notice her footsteps. She dressed in simple clothes. Nothing bright. Nothing bold. Just clean, neat, and quiet. Her hair was always tied back, not styled to impress, only to stay out of the way. When she sat down, she chose places near the back or the side. Places where she could see everything but not be seen much herself. If there was a chance to stay silent, she took it to most people. She seemed ordinary. The kind of person you might forget after meeting once. The kind of person whose name you might not remember right away. If she passed you in a hallway, you would not turn your head to look again. Not because she was invisible, but because she never asked to be noticed. She worked hard in quiet ways. She followed rules, arrived on time, and completed every task given to her. When others complained, she listened. When others argued, she stepped back. She did not push herself forward even when she knew she could. When praise was given, it usually went to someone else. And she told herself that was fine. She told herself she did not need it. That she was comfortable where she was, at least. It was what she believed most days. But inside her, there was something different. Something alive. Something that did not match. How small she tried to appear. That thing was music. Music was the one place where she did not feel small. But music was also something she kept to herself. She had learned, slowly and quietly, that not everything precious needed to be shared. Some things felt safer when no one could judge them. Some joys felt deeper when they were private, so she played alone. Late evenings, when the world felt tired. Quiet rooms, where the lights were dim and the walls had heard many secrets. Old pianos that were slightly out of tune, their keys worn from years of use. She did not mind. To her, every piano had a voice. She played not to impress anyone. She played not to show skill or earn praise. She played because it helped her breathe, because it made sense of feelings she could never put into words. When her fingers moved across the keys, the world slowed down. Worries softened. Thoughts became clear. Music listened when no one else did, and that part of her life stayed invisible. The day everything began did not feel important at first. It was not dramatic or exciting. It was planned weeks in advance. Written on schedules, mentioned in passing. Just another long day waiting to be completed. A formal assessment was taking place at an academic music hall. One of those large spaces with wooden walls and high ceilings. The kind of room where footsteps echoed and even small sounds felt louder than they should. She had been there before. But never in this way. She was not there as a main performer. She was part of a wider program. A general requirement. Something students had to do, even if music was not their main focus. It was meant to test basic understanding, not talent. Nothing special. Nothing risky. Most people treated it like a simple task. Play something short. Get feedback. Move on. She expected the same. When she entered the hall, the space felt heavier than usual. The air seemed thicker, filled with quiet tension. Rows of seats stretched toward the stage, empty but watching. The piano sat at the center, dark and polished, waiting. A few teachers sat near the front. They held papers and spoke in low voices. Their posture was straight, their expressions serious. These were people used to being listened to. Used to judging performances, their voices carried authority. The kind that made people stand straighter without realizing it. She found a seat near the side and sat down. Her hands rested in her lap, fingers lightly touching. She took a slow breath. Around her, others waited too. Some looked confident, tapping their fingers or stretching their hands. Some looked nervous, reading notes or whispering to friends. A few laughed quietly, trying to hide their fear. She stayed quiet. She watched the floor. She listened to the small sounds around her. Chairs shifting. Pages turning. Soft footsteps near the stage. One by one, people were called forward. Each performance was different. Some played well. Some stumbled. Some smiled through mistakes. Some rushed, eager to finish. The teachers nodded. They wrote notes. Sometimes they asked questions. Then they called the next name. Time passed slowly. Her heart beat a little. Faster each time someone else finished. When her turn finally came, she did not move right away. It took a moment for her to realize the name spoken belonged to her. The sound felt distant, like it came from far away. Then she understood. She stood. She smoothed her clothes without thinking. A small habit, a way to calm herself. Then she walked toward the stage. Every step felt louder than the last. The hall seemed bigger now. The lights brighter. The piano farther away than it had looked before. She could feel eyes on her. Not curious eyes. Not kind ones. Just aware ones. Watching because it was her turn, she kept her head down as she reached the piano. Up close, it looked even more serious. The black surface reflected the lights above. The bench was placed perfectly, as if waiting for someone important. She paused. Just for a second. One of the teachers glanced at her file. The look was neutral. Almost bored. Like this was just another name on a long list. Begin with something simple, the teacher said, without lifting their head. She nodded. Her fingers rested lightly on the edge of the bench. She felt the smooth wood beneath her skin. For a brief moment, she considered doing exactly what was asked. Something simple. Something easy. Something that would end quickly. She could play a short piece, make no mistakes, and leave without drawing attention. No one would remember it, but something inside her resisted. It was not anger, not pride, just a quiet pull, a feeling that whispered, "Not today." She lifted her head just slightly. "May I try something more difficult?" she asked. Her voice was soft, but steady. The room changed. The teacher finally looked up. Surprise crossed their face. Another teacher leaned forward, curious. The quiet in the hall felt heavier now, more difficult. One of them said. She nodded again. The teachers exchanged looks. They were not cruel looks, but they were doubtful. Her appearance did not match her request. She did not look confident. She did not look trained. She looked like someone who should not take risks. After a moment, one of them shrugged. "If you insist," the teacher said, "we'll choose for you." A piece was named. It was not kind. It was not forgiving. It was complex, fast, full of sharp turns and difficult timing. A piece many struggled with. Even after years of training, there was no smile when it was announced. It was not encouragement. It was a test. Some people in the audience shifted in their seats. A few raised their eyebrows. Someone near the back let out a quiet breath, as if they already knew how this would end. Failure, she felt it too. The weight of expectation pressed down on her chest. Not hope, not excitement, doubt. Still, she said nothing. She moved the bench closer. She sat down. Her hands rested in her lap. Her fingers curled gently, as if remembering something. She took a slow breath. The piano keys stretched out in front of her. White and black. Familiar. Comforting. Like an old road she had walked many times alone, but this time, alone. Her heart beat faster, but her thoughts grew quiet. She remembered other rooms. Smaller ones. Rooms where no one watched. She remembered playing late at night, careful not to disturb anyone. She remembered mistakes. Long practice hours. In moments of joy, no one else saw. She remembered why she loved music. The teachers waited. The hall was silent. Someone coughed. A chair creaked. Then nothing. She lifted her hands. They hovered above the keys. Not shaking, not rushed. Just waiting. From the outside, she looked unsure. From the inside, she was stepping into a place she knew. Well, the teacher cleared their throat. "You may begin," they said. She closed her eyes for half a second. Not to escape, but to focus. Then she placed her fingers on the keys. The moment stretched. Everyone was watching now, some with interest, some with doubt, some already certain of what would happen. No one yet understood what they were about to hear, and just before the first note was played, just before sound filled the hall, the story paused right at the edge of something waiting to be revealed. The first note filled the hall. It was soft, almost careful, like a question spoken in a quiet voice, not sure if it would be answered. It did not rush forward. It did not try to show strength or skill. It simply existed, floating gently into the open space. A few people blinked. They had expected noise. They had expected struggle. Instead, they heard calm. The second note followed. Then the third, each one placed with care. Slowly, something began to change. Her hands moved with calm purpose. They were not stiff, not tense. They did not hesitate or search. Each finger seemed to know exactly where it belonged, as if the piano were not an object in front of her, but a familiar friend she had met many times before. The sound grew stronger, not louder, but fuller. The melody began to rise and fall, smooth and steady. The notes connected easily, like sentences spoken by someone who knew exactly what they wanted to say. There was no fight in her movement, no sharp effort. Everything flowed. One of the teachers leaned forward without realizing it. Someone in the audience, who had been tapping their foot, stopped. The music continued, as the piece became more complex. Her playing did not break or slow. The fast parts flowed cleanly, without panic. The difficult turns arrived and passed with control. When the music demanded strength, she gave it without force. When it asked for softness, she pulled back gently, like someone who understood balance. It was not loud, but it was powerful. The hall, once filled with quiet doubt and silent judgment, now held a different kind of silence. Not the uncomfortable kind. Not the kind filled with waiting or tension. The listening kind. Her face remained calm, her mouth relaxed. Her eyes stayed focused on the keys. She did not look at the teachers. She did not glance at the audience. She did not search for approval in any direction. She played as if no one else existed. Inside her, something opened. The nerves that had tightened her chest began to fade. The fear that had followed her onto the stage slipped away little by little. The hall disappeared. The lights faded from her thoughts. The people were gone. She was back in those quiet nights. Back in small rooms with thin walls. Back in spaces where she played softly so no one would hear. Back in moments where music was not performance, but comfort. Back with the one thing that had always understood her. Only now. The sound traveled farther. A teacher stopped writing. Another lowered their pen slowly, as if afraid that even a small movement might break. What was happening? The piece grew faster. Her hands moved with more confidence now. Her fingers lifted and landed with perfect timing, light but sure. The sound filled the space, bouncing off the wooden walls, reaching the back rows, touching every corner of the hall. People began to notice details they had not expected to notice. The way she shaped each phrase, giving it room to breathe. The way she held tension, letting it stretch just long enough, then releasing it gently. The way the music felt alive, not forced, not practiced, but real. This was not someone trying to survive a challenge. This was someone who belonged here. A quiet breath escaped from someone near the front. The teachers exchanged glances, not the doubtful ones from before, not the ones filled with quiet judgment. These were different, wide-eyed, focused, almost. The piece reached a section many feared, a difficult part, one that often revealed weakness, one where hands slipped and rhythms fell apart. Her fingers did not slip. They danced. Each note landed exactly where it should. Clean, sure, confident. The rhythm stayed steady, like a heartbeat that never lost its pace. And beneath the skill, the emotion deepened. The hall felt smaller now, not because it had changed, but because the music pulled everyone inward. It gathered them together, holding their attention in one place. No one coughed. No chair creaked. No one moved. The final section approached. The music slowed, then rose again, carrying something gentle and heavy at the same time. A sense of longing, of memory, of honesty, something that felt human. Her shoulders relaxed. She was no longer proving anything. She was no longer answering doubt. She was telling a story without words. When the last note finally sounded, it did not end sharply. It did not crash or demand attention. It faded slowly, like a breath released after being held for a very long time. Silence followed, not the uncomfortable kind, the full kind. For a moment, no one reacted. The sound seemed to linger in the air, as if the room itself needed time to understand what had just happened, as if the walls were listening, remembering. Then someone stood. Slowly they began to clap. Another person joined. Then another. The sound grew, spreading through the hall, filling the space where the music had been. Soon the room was filled with applause, not loud cheering, not shouting, not noise, but steady, honest clapping, the kind that comes from respect. She remained seated for a second longer. Her hands rested lightly in her lap. She took a breath, a real one, the kind she rarely allowed herself to take in front of others. Then she stood. She turned toward the teachers. Her face remained calm. Her posture stayed modest. She did not raise her chin or smile proudly. She gave a small bow. Not dramatic, not proud, just thankful. The applause softened, then slowly stopped. One of the teachers cleared their throat. They looked at her differently now, not as a name on a list, not as a quiet student sitting in the back, but as a musician that was exceptional, the teacher said slowly. The word hung in the air. Another teacher nodded. You have remarkable control, they added, and depth. She nodded in response. She did not smile widely. She did not rush to explain herself. She did not speak about the years of quiet practice, the lonely evenings, or the moments when music was the only place. She felt whole. She did not need to. The music had already spoken. She stepped away from the piano, returned to her seat as she walked. People watched her again, but this time it was different. The looks were softer, curious, respectful. Some carried quiet. Wondered. She sat down and folded her hands in her lap. Just as she had before, her heart still beat fast, but not from fear, from release. The rest of the assessments continued. Other students played Namet. Other names were called. But the room never fully returned to how it had been before. Something had shifted, eh? Quiet understanding settled among those present. Sometimes talent does not arrive loudly. Sometimes it waits. After the session ended, people gathered their things and began to leave. Conversations buzzed softly through the hall, filled with small comments and quiet excitement. A teacher approached her. We would like to speak with you, they said. Kindly, she nodded and followed. They spoke calmly. They asked questions about her background, about how she learned, about how long she had been playing. She answered simply, I practiced on my own, she said. For a long time. They listened carefully now. Really listened. You should not hide this, one teacher said gently. She looked down for a moment, then she looked back up. I wasn't hiding, she said quietly. I was just holding it. The teacher smiled. That day did not change her overnight. She did not become loud. She did not chase attention. She did not seek applause, but something inside her shifted. She no longer felt a need to shrink. She understood that being quiet did not mean being small, that choosing silence did not mean lacking strength, and that sometimes the world does not see you until you allow your truth to be heard. Music had always been her voice now. Others had heard it too, and she carried that knowledge with her, steady and calm, into whatever came next.